If you're installing services maybe such as a web server or a Samba server onto CentOS, you also have to enable the service. So we're going to take a look now at how we can enable and start our services. Previously, I think we've already installed the Apache server on this system. So if I double check, we can go through and do a yum install httpd. And we can see then that's already installed and up and running. So if we now go through and check to see if it's running, so let's go through Nmap on the local host. So we're just running a port scan. We can see that we've got port 25 open, we've got port 22. So we've got a mail server that's listening and we've got the SSH server that is listening, but we don't have our web server that is listening. Let's look at running then the systemctl command. So we can go through and run systemctl. And then if we look at, say, status, httpd.service, then we can see, well, at the moment, it's not up and running. So we can see that it's not running and its state is disabled. So what we're going to do is, first of all, enable the service. So I can go through and use enable. So that's then creating the symbolic link within the multi-user target, so our run level 3 environment, which of course is included also when we go into our graphical target. But if I now go through and check my status, and we can go through and use status, I can use again my tab completion once I've got that bash completion package installed, so even on the sub commands I can use it. And we can then go through and use htt and then tab, and we can see then that expands into my service file. Let's clear this out. So we can see now that it's enabled. The vendor preset is disabled, but of course we've gone through and manually enabled this. So this means it's going to start on system startup, but it's not currently running. So of course then we need to go through and run the start command. So we can go through and start our service. And now of course when we go back and look at the status, we can see that it is now both enabled and of course the system is active and running, and we get then information about the control groups that it belongs to. This is for controlling resources and making sure that all of the services are closed down when the service closed down. And then we can see information from the log file. So let's now go back and rerun the nmap command. So let's go through and run nmap on our local host. And now we can see that we are listening on port 80 on this system. Now, of course, we're going to have to add in our web content and things like that, but at least we've got our web server up and running. So generally, if we go through and install a service, whether it's on a CentOS system or a Red Hat based system, we're going to have to go through and enable and start the service. But there is a little bit of a shortcut that I haven't shown you as yet. To be honest, I didn't learn this way initially, and I'm just very much old school. Once you learn one way, it's hard to go back and reteach yourself. But there is quite a cool shortcut. I've just gone back to where my web server is installed, but it's not enabled or started. So if I go through and use my systemctl and go through and take a look at the status of the httpd, and we can see that it's not enabled and it's not running. So this is the state that it is when it's installed. What I can do is a shortcut. I can use then systemctl and then enable my httpd and just add on the -- now. What this is going to do is both enable the service, so it's going to be started on the system startup, but it will also be running. If I go back and take a look now, we can see that it's running and it's enabled. So this is a really cool shortcut. If we want to do it similarly where we want to disable it, if I use the disable command with the option -- now, then it's going to both disable the service and stop the service. So if I go back now, taking a look at the status, I can see that the system is not enabled, nor is it currently running. So this is quite a nice little shortcut to get used to. Just need to teach myself a little bit better to use it. Well, I think now is a little bit of a good point to go through and recap what we've looked at in this software management module.